Hi, and welcome to this live conversation. If you're watching this, you are most likely watching it on catch up. So thank you for tuning in, and welcome to episode 3 of the As It Is podcast. I'm very, very excited to see this grow, and I'm very, very excited to see how this all unfolds and all the experiences and all the conversations that we are going to be able to share via this platform. Hello everyone, Antoinette, hello Leafy, hi Ndivu, welcome everyone, Tiago, welcome, hello Pita. So if you are listening to this on the podcast, you are welcome to fast forward 5 or so minutes until we get into the nitty-gritty of the conversation. You guys know this is kind of a two-way thing, so we do it live on Insta because I love video and I love having at least a face-to-face conversation with the person I'm chatting to. But then it's also super helpful to have it on a podcast if you're driving and you don't want to kind of stream a video. Then you can just go bloop, listen to it on the podcast, and it's easy to share. So you can listen via Spotify, or you can head over to my bio, and the link is there, and you can have a listen. So welcome. Hi, Lizelle. Pamela, that's a lovely, lovely person to see here. I don't feel like we've spoken in forever. Leanne, hi, welcome everyone. I see Firdose has jumped on, so we'll just give her a moment to see if anyone... Oh wait, I'm going to invite you to join. I hope you got it. I feel like I've done this so many times and there's still... this doesn't always work. Aha!
Hi, am I on?
You're on! Yay!
Hey, awesome! Yay! I'm like looking at it like, wow, I'm really there. I'm in a very warm Paarl. How's my lights? Do you want me to move a little bit?
No, you look good. You look good. It's nice and nice. It's actually funny because when I first saw, I was like, aren't those the colors of your walls in your apartment?
Actually, yeah, they are sort of. Hey, it's like I've got a home everywhere.
Yeah, and then I was like, are you at home? Are you in Paarl? Where are you?
No. I'm here in a very warm Paarl, where there's some cricket happening tomorrow, and I've had some work to do today. It's lovely. It's hot. It's hot.
It is. I'm honest. I guess we're lucky we at the coast, so it does not get as warm. But I mean, I'm a total summer baby, so for me, like, I will sweat and I will love that. Like, just keep the heat switched on for me.
Absolutely, yeah. It's such a nice time of year as well, you know, with the late sunsets, and so everything just feels open and fluid, and it's lovely.
It's also like your days are so nice and long, so like I feel there's so much less pressure. Like my anxiety is less because at 8 o'clock there's still light, and I'm like, oh cool, I can still sit and work for an hour, or there's, you know, an hour to be outdoors. It makes such a difference.
Absolutely, yeah, it really does. If only it could be like this the whole year, right?
I mean, yeah, if only we could be those fortunate people who live in their summer house for 6 months and then in their other summer house for 6 months.
We're getting there. We are getting there. I'm telling you.
You hear me, baby?
Says, there's no sound. Is there no sound?
Is there no sound?
I mean, I can hear you.
I can hear you. Is everyone... Can anyone else let me know if... Okay. Thanks, Ndibu. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe go out and come back in if you can't hear us. I mean, the key is always just like close the app and then come back on, you know, reset. Just reset.
Exactly.
Just reset.
But
welcome to everyone who has come on to watch. Thank you guys. Welcome to everyone who's hopped on to watch this conversation. As I mentioned a little earlier, this is going to be transferred to the As It Is podcast, so it will be in audio format as well. I'm very excited to have Firdose here. We're on conversation 3. The first one was with Tams and She. The second one was with Priya. Now I've got you here, and I just feel like I've got this golden, like, group of humans that I just feel so privileged to know and to have friendships with and to learn from, and that you are all prepared to bring your faces on social media with me. So thank you so much. I hope that everyone who's viewing this and listening to this can really also just take a moment of like, yeah, how awesome this is that we get to do this. So yeah, I guess let's, without any further ado, jump into it. We've had a conversation before. I always like to start with, you introducing yourself. I know there's a lot of names on here, and I know they know exactly who you are and what you do. But for those who don't, just before we get into your work stuff, just tapping in a little more into who Firdose is, where you came from, your upbringing, and I'm especially interested in learning about when did you realize that you were kind of stepping onto that healing journey, and when did yoga arrive in it all?
Yes, quite a question with a lot of parts, right? Because I guess you're asking for quite a deep historical look into ourselves, which is my favorite subject, actually, history. But I suppose I'll start with just introducing kind of my heritage and my background. So I'm actually a Joba girl, but I am a third generation Indian living in South Africa. So my grandparents, all four of them, were born in India. And they came to South Africa for, I guess, unknown reasons, mostly. And this is what's so interesting, which we'll talk about later, about, sometimes the stories that we don't complete. So three of them, I don't really know why they came to South Africa. I assume that they came as part of the merchant trading class. And the fourth, I'm very sure, came as a stowaway on a boat. So running away from something, but we don't know from what. And none of them are with us anymore today, so we can't ask them those questions. And I grew up at a very interesting time in South Africa, actually, which I think a lot of the people who are on this podcast and even around the world will probably of a similar age to you and I think you're a bit younger than I am, is, that time really that straddled the transition to democracy, which was I guess a time of a lot of pain, but also a lot of hope in South Africa. I grew up in a mood of optimism, which I think has changed over the years. And my brother, who's 10 years younger than me, for example, grew up in a completely different South Africa, and it's not that long after me, So I grew up in a struggle home as part of the anti-apartheid movement, and one of the things that we did as communities and people of color of the time was to move into what were then white areas and to take up space, which was very uncomfortable, as I'm sure you can imagine, being around the unfamiliar, and also like not really knowing or understanding. I mean, I was pretty young at the time, so not really understanding like why are we doing this, and just wanting to be with other people who look like you. So that was interesting. And then I completed my schooling in Joburg, did my first degree there. Got my first job there, all those sort of life steps. Moved to Cape Town, which I think you find a lot of Joburgers are doing that these days. And this is where, I don't live in Paarl, I live in Cape Town. I'm in Paarl right now. And although I wouldn't mind maybe a little second home in Paarl. And then, if anyone's listening with a lot of money. And I worked primarily as a sports writer, which is a job I've done since quite a young age.
Babe, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna pause you quick, just because your reception's going. It was okay now, but it's gone a bit like fuzzy.
Okay.
So I can kind of hear you. It's just breaking up quite a lot now at the end.
That?
It's so.
Is that better?
A little bit.
I'm gonna switch to the 5G. So
okay, let's maybe.
It
might just need a moment to settle.
Okay. Cool.
Okay.
Tell
cool.
me when I should continue.
Give it a moment. Give it a moment. Because I can hear you. There's just a lot of crackling, and then every now and then I lose you.
Okay, that is very unusual. Do you think it's a Paarl thing?
Maybe. at this point, like, internet for me is just like, it is what it is. And it's just one of the many things we can't control.
That's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think you can continue, but maybe just talk a little slower in case we lose you.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me, how does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds okay. I can hear you.
Cool. So I think I was at the point of talking about what I do and saying that primarily I work as a sports writer, and this is my 16th summer actually covering cricket, which is many, many, many summers. Some people have probably only been alive for 16 years who are on the sport. So yeah, that's what I do primarily, and then I'm also an academic and a student. We'll talk about that a little bit, and I think a lot of my understanding of all the different things that I do is very much shaped by the way that I grew up and the environment that I grew up in, which is quite political. And sorry, the second part of your question was, when did you start doing yoga, which I completely forgot about. So I wasn't a very sporty or active child. I was a little bit more of a nerd, I suppose. I enjoyed my books and my studies and writing. I always enjoyed writing. And I think I only really started becoming interested in like embodied stuff in my early 20s. You know, I worked in sport, which is a physical thing. And I guess when you're around that a lot, you know, you sort of start to think about it in different ways. I started as actually somebody who enjoyed running. That's not a past tense thing. I still enjoy running, mostly because I could do it anywhere. And it's a pretty simple activity in that you just really need a pair of shoes. I guess the actual running isn't so simple, but you can pretty much strap on a pair of shoes and off you go. And then that comes with some problems. You run for a lot of time and you get sort of sore, your knees hurt, your legs hurt, your back hurts, everything hurts. So I think it was probably around 2012-ish, which is 10 years ago now, more than, that that I started looking into just other ways of doing things and also ways to sort of ease the pain a little bit. And that's when I became a bit more involved in the physical side of the yoga practice. I did my first teacher training 6 years ago now, 2017. But I think the question is really interesting because I suppose if you ask people of, I'm just going to call it the culture from a broad perspective, when did you start doing something like yoga? And it's a question that really speaks to a lot of the aspects of yoga. And I guess the answer has to be always, right? Because you would have always done aspects of mantra recitation or contemplative practice or the other parts. And I don't know that we've always thought about that. I don't think it was ever called that in our homes and in our, especially the diaspora, but it was that with other names.
I love that. That is probably like the coolest answer I've ever heard is, when did you start doing yoga? And you're like, well, I've probably always been doing it. I might not have called it that, but in some way, shape, or form, it's probably always existed within, my actions.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think you'll find that a lot of people will have a similar answer. And this is really one of the key aspects of the research that I'm doing is definitional work, which sounds so simple, because you think everything you do and every word and every practice has a name with one meaning. And that's really not the case. You find that definitions are extremely wide ranging. And what you think of as whatever, meditation means something in a completely different context, yet it's still similar-ish in terms of the action or the activity. And I find that really interesting, that things have so many different meanings over time.
I mean, one of the many things I love about you, Firdose, is how so often you'll meet people and they're in a certain workspace or area or career, and you kind of look back to where they've come from, and then there's this like, oh wow, like how did that person end up doing this when they're from there, or whatever the case. And I love how you've really like you like your roots, and now you're into the tree and your roots are growing through, and you're just this tree that's growing from her roots, and it's been so beautiful to see. And I think your masters has played like such a big role in all of that, because I mean I didn't even go to university, so when anyone's like they've done their masters, I'm like, damn girl, like, you know, you got it, you got it. And I'd love to, you know, that was the naming of this podcast as well, was yoga politics and the possibilities of social justice. And I'd love for you just to share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, no one's ever described me as a tree, so thanks. Yeah, that's a new one for me.
You can explore it in your subconscious.
I see Kim on our call.
Hi,
Kim and I
Kim.
went to school together, actually, which is really cool.
That's awesome.
You're right. I am like the roots of the tree. Hey, there we go. Here's some roots for you. I after what was it, about 10 years or so of doing the job that I do, was a little bit tired because it's quite an exhausting job. And I wanted a break, which I was very, very lucky to be able to get. And I chose to use that break to go and do my master's. And I'd always wanted to study. I did my first degree on a scholarship. So it wasn't really possible for me to fund further study at the time. I also really needed a job. And I'd always wanted to do a degree in history, actually, because that's really the subject that I'm very passionate about. But I came across this master's that was offered at the School of Oriental and African Studies in London, where I had been traveling for cricket over many years. And it was a degree in the traditions of yoga and meditation, which I really want to explain that, because I think people will hear it and think it's a long teacher training or a visit to an ashram or some combination of those things. It's not that at all. It's a history and philosophy degree which looks at yoga and meditation from a historical and academic point of critique. And what's important for me to say that is that, you know, critique is not criticism. It's taking a very critical view of things. It's questioning everything, which is something I've always been quite good at, actually, and asking why. You know, like that irritating child who's always like, "But why must we?" Which you know, used to irritate everybody that I knew. But it's an excellent skill to have in academia. And so the degree really looks at the traditions of yoga from its origin period. I'll use that word in inverted commas, which is around 3,000 years before the Common Era. And it takes it sort of to the 20th century, so not really to the present day. But I think what really helped me was that I was teaching and I was engaging in yoga in a modern perspective, and then learning about it from a historical perspective, and I was able to bring those two things together. My dissertation project was going to be just about the effect of yoga on the refugee community in the UK. I felt very closely connected to that cause as a migrant myself at the time, you know, in the UK, but also coming from a migrant background. So I started volunteering in a refugee project there. And it struck me very early on that I was the only teacher of color, that most of the refugees were either, if not of color, they were foreign to the situation. So even, you know, we worked with a lot of women from Albania who, of course, are from Eastern Europe, speak in a different accent and so on. And all the teachers were white English teachers. And I found quite a disconnect in this, which I tried to ignore for maybe the first 6 months or so. But I had a really good master's supervisor who I think pushed the right or wrong buttons at the time. I was actually incidentally also the only person from Africa in the course. So that also made me, I suppose, different and unusual in that sense. And she really pushed the right buttons, and I ended up looking at the effect of yoga in these projects, given the race and the class difference between the teachers and the students. And I really started interrogating the racialization of the body, why the black body is seen differently to the white body, you know, why the brown body is almost absent in a lot of these discussions, even though the yoga practice comes from the brown bodies and the brown minds. And, you know, why is it so absent in the conversation? Anyway, I did the dissertation. I was accepted to do this exact PhD that you've mentioned in the UK, but again, you know, my money was tough, so I came back home. Also, I had a job to come back to, and Cape Town with all the nice things like the sun, which you don't really see so much of out there. And I started doing the same doctorate at the University of Cape Town. So it's a very different setup in that they don't have a specialized yoga department. I'm working through the Department of Anthropology and really looking very deeply into the history of the body, if I can put it that way, in you know, how it is that we came to study anatomy from a medical perspective, how it is that we came to look for cures, healing, you know, everything from ancient Greek medicine through to the medicines of the ancient East, traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, and then trying to bring that into the way we experience yoga today. That's the broad idea of what I'm doing. But just to say, if there's time to say that the political aspect of it is that yoga, like any culture, is highly politicized, more so today than ever before, because it's coming through a place where we've got a nationalist leader in power in Narendra Modi, who is really doing what I feel is the most dangerous thing that can be done, which is essentializing the practice of yoga and saying it's only a Hindu practice. It only comes from this geographic region of India as it exists today, all of which is just wrong. So the politics of it is trying to say yoga is not one thing from one region belonging to one religious tradition. It is in fact many things, and that's where I spoke about the definitions of everything that I'm interrogating. And I'm really trying to look into what does this thing mean to different people, and then how can we use it to promote healing, restoration, not just for ourselves, because you know, healing by ourselves is very nice, but it doesn't really help anything. We need something that reaches out, and we need to encourage a communal form of healing.
Absolutely. I love that. I think it can be, it's very easy to get stuck on your own little solo journey, and I think you can get very stuck in quite a small world, in your own little world, and the work we're doing internally is important because of the effect it has on the world around us. And so if the work that you're doing internally is not having any kind of ripple effect in the world around you, then there's really no point to it, is there?
Exactly. It's about, you know, we're part of a whole, and I guess we have to recognize that part of the responsibility of being alive is that you are engaging with those around you. And you know, we're talking today on an internet connection, which may not be so great, but we, as South Africans, we're pretty privileged to have iPhone, or what, I don't know if I can even say iPhone. I'm not a sponsor of Mac. Mac do not sponsor me. You know, we have technology, we have internet, we have lights at a time when we're at stage 6 load shedding and half the country's in the dark all the time, and soon we'll also be in the dark. So, you know, part of the responsibility of being human is to recognize privilege in whatever form it comes in your life, and to then recognize its converse, and to try and bridge that gap, and to understand that we're not going to get better unless we're all getting better together. We have to solve everybody's problems to solve our own problems.
Yeah. And just to pull back a little bit, a lot of what you were saying now is in your yoga in the modern age course that's now on the Charlotte's website, if I'm correct.
Yeah, that's right. So
yeah, tell us
I did manage
a bit more about that specific offering.
So that course was offered as a Zoom live course once upon a time in the lockdown. And the idea of it was, it's quite a recent bit of scholarship in that it really only looks at the developments of yoga from the colonial period, which is the mid-18th century, to today. It's a 4-session lecture-based course. It's about 45 to 50-ish minutes per lecture. And it looks at 4 topics. So the first one is the development of asana yoga, which, to be honest, was what I thought people were most interested in, because the people going to a studio setting are practicing the physical yoga. And that's it was like a trick, you know. I wanted to be like, here, come listen to this. Also, here's these other important things. And then the second lecture deals with yoga in radical movements, which is really, you know, my favorite subject. It looks at yoga in the Indian independence movement. It looks at yoga in the Black civil rights movement in America. It looks at yoga and the hippie movement. So I really enjoy that one. And then we look at yoga moving west and just how that transition happened, why it happened, and what the implications are. And then I think our final session looks at very, very closely at yoga today in 2023, which is internet yoga, which is Instagram yoga, which is a very visual-based thing, often very goal-oriented, you know, involving other things like, I don't know, weights and HIIT and whatever. So, you know, those sorts of
goats
things.
And beer.
Yeah.
And
goats and beer. Goats and beer. Sometimes together, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. It's like beer goat yoga.
But no animal cruelty is permitted in my lectures. So yeah, that's the course that is on the Charlotte's online platform at the moment, and we will build on this as the many years go on. And yeah, then there's also a couple of other offerings which I'm hoping to roll out. I'm a big fan of independent study, mostly because I think it's the best way to learn, in that it's nice when I'm telling you things and you're nodding in front of me, but I know that's not really the learning. So I like to have the pre-recorded stuff where people can go back, re-listen, make their own notes. And in fact, what I really like is to have discussion where people come to a roundtable session or a focus group and sort of argue with each other a little bit. Then I feel I'm achieving something, because you want people to bring across different viewpoints and also to really ask each other and themselves questions. So the courses I'll be rolling out this year, which is I offer a yoga essentials course followed by an immersion, followed by an exploration. They all take a decolonial slant, because I'm trying to ask the question of what is decolonization. And it's not just saying, let's forget that we were ever ruled by pale Europeans, which, I mean, yeah, okay, sure, that's one part of it, but there's much more to it. And we've got to interrogate, what does it mean to decolonize, and what does it mean to decolonize yoga?
Yeah, and I think it's you are someone who, and I know, you know, especially the last, I say, since COVID, you've had to have such hard conversations, and you've really been someone in the yoga community in South Africa who has asked the questions when no one has wanted to ask the questions, which I know you and I have had a lot of chats about it, and at times when you just like, you know, flip cats, like, fuck, actually, what, you know, what the hell? And it is, I think, you know, your yoga essentials course, your book club, for instance, is something that changed my life personally. It's something that really opened up my eyes on race, my eyes on being a white woman, my eyes on being a white woman in South Africa, my eyes on having a white husband and a white family, and my friends of color and my white friends. And I mean, you and I have had these discussions over and over again, you know, when Neil was living up on the West Coast and what it was like there, and then being in the city and now living out in Hermanus and growing up in the Platteland, like, and having a rich Afrikaans heritage. And what about that heritage do I really love? And what about that heritage is just really painful and sad, and being able to, so I do want you to chat about book club just a little bit, because I know for me that was like one of probably the biggest aha experiences that I've had in my life. And it's not a book club. It's not a book club. So you got to explain to everyone a little bit what it's about, because I think anyone who's listening to this, guys, it is well worth your time arriving for just one of these, and you'll be hooked.
Thank you. I'm glad you've said that. Yeah, it's not a book club in that we don't meet physically and there's no wine, but you're welcome to consume wine in your own private space if you'd like. It's what I've decided to do was to create a kind of scholarly platform for people to engage with, not necessarily work that's always directly related to yoga, in that we're not reading, for example, BKS Iyengar's Light on Yoga, but maybe we will one day. we're reading texts that tell us about, or we're listening to, because this year's first one is a podcast series, where we're reading and listening to things that help us understand history and that help us relate that to the way we are in the world. And that is essentially yoga in a lot of ways, right? So the book club was designed as that forum during lockdown. We've been through a lot of topics. We've discussed everything from appropriation to, I don't know, the history of India, which is actually what's coming up this month. We're looking at the excellent podcast, Empire podcast, it's phenomenal. And it really looks at Indian history in a way that a lot of British people, because the podcast is British, tell me they've never learned, which again, just boggles my mind, because it's like not that secret information. But anyway, their schools, we need to talk about that. But the book club is designed to make us think, to make us really, really engage with it. It's not necessarily academic material. It's interesting material. It's written work, spoken work, and it's to make us kind of consider our positions in what we do. So you don't have to be a yoga practitioner. You don't have to be a yoga teacher. You don't have to be anything to come to the book club. You have to have an open mind. You have to be curious. You have to be interested in the world. You have to want to come and share something. You don't even have to read, to be honest. Like, we do a lot of the work for you there.
I think that's what was really amazing for me, was because I think it was the first time that I felt like I could say the things that I wanted to say, even if it was wrong, even if it was whatever it was, even if I was then given feedback and being like, Wildcat, like, that's a very interesting perspective, I'm not sure that's the truth, or whatever the case may be. Like, you arrive and it's a space where you can go, well, I'm gonna take responsibility for what I think and what I know, and maybe it's right and maybe it's wrong, but hopefully I can learn here, and hopefully I can, I don't know, be better by being here.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's so important that we don't, this cancel culture in the world that is doing the rounds makes people afraid to try things. We need spaces where we can experiment a little bit. I say the wrong thing maybe, I don't know, 9 billion times a day, and it's fine. I don't mind. Like, sometimes people fight with me. It's not nice to be fought with, but it is, you've got to be able, we're adults, right? We've got to be able to have conversations where we disagree, and we can maybe still be friends at the end of the day, or we disagree and at least we can still respect each other, and we can learn something from each other, because our lived experiences are so different. You and I, and you and everyone else, right?
And I think it's also understanding. I think, it's really nice to have the whole live, laugh, love, and I talk about this a lot. Like, live, laugh, love is beautiful. We all need live, laugh, love in our life. But live, laugh, love is not the reality for a lot of people on this planet. Like, it takes, for the average person, if you take, I'll use myself as an example. It's really hard work for me to have a positive outlook and be proactive and be working on my things, and I'm sitting in a house that I'm able to pay off, with my 2 dogs that I'm able to feed, with my husband who loves me, etc., in a lot of privilege, and I struggle to find like a positive outlook on things. Like, you can put the facade on, but in reality there is a lot of trauma, there is a lot of hurt, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of fear, and there's a lot of anger going around in the world. And so I think that having spaces where we can talk about that, not mull in it, not get stuck in it, not breed it, that's not the point, but there has to be an acknowledgement that it exists.
Yeah, absolutely. And also really, almost take a little bit of a bird's eye view and do an analysis of why things are the way they are. It's not like we're looking for all the solutions, because if that was the case, we wouldn't be running a book club, we'd be in government. So we're not, right?
Let Firdose run the government.
There are lots of problems I can't fix, and that's one of them. But we're just trying to have conversation, and we're trying to have meaningful conversation, because us talking about the weather in Paarl is nice for 2 minutes, and then who cares? So we want to try to really delve into deep issues, and we have fun. We laugh, we joke, we we enjoy the time, but I think we leave with something.
Yeah. No, 100%. 100%. And I'm actually we've got a little bit of time left because I know you and I was laughing at all these chats. I'm like, we will go on forever because it's like we get into the chat and then we start getting deep into the chat and then we're like, okay, now we're ready to talk. Like now we've hit our groove. Let's go. But two of the last things that I did want you to, or ask if you wanted to share with us was, one of the things was, how do you ground yourself? How do you keep yourself present? What are your support tools, maybe outside of yoga asana? Yoga asana might be part of it, but I'm definitely sure that you've got more to share than just the mats.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, I thought about this question. It was a difficult one for me because the answer didn't come to me immediately. But towards the end of 2021, which is, I don't know when that was, some 18 months ago or whatever. No, it's only January, right? One of my friends, Marguerite Stein, swam an open water ocean race, which she won, which I found very amazing because I had never seen anybody do such a thing. And I wanted to also be able to do that. So I took up swimming lessons. I have not entered an open water swimming race, and I'm absolutely sure I would not win one. But I have learned how to swim lengths up and down a pool without stopping many, 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 many times. So that's something. It's something that I really enjoy doing. It's obviously the weather's been great now, and at Sea Point where I am, we've got the 50-meter outdoor pool, which is, it's an amazing facility. It's a government facility, a City of Cape Town facility. It's got to be up there with the best in the world, I think. It's phenomenal. So I do that twice a week, which I like it because when you're swimming, like nothing can really bother you. In fact, you don't even have to listen to people. You can just put your head in the water and, that's it. Bye. So I think that's been a really interesting, I don't know if it's grounding, but it's definitely an insular type of practice for me. I still run, some days with less pain than others. So, and I've always enjoyed that as an activity. I've always found it to be something which I did for myself and which I enjoyed. And then I thought of the third one, and I think it's probably reading. I read a lot because, I'm doing a PhD and that's sort of what you have to do. But I like to read outside of it. And I've always really loved historical fiction. And at the moment I'm reading a book which is 900 pages long. It's called The Books of Jacob, and it's about a man who claims to be the Messiah. So I guess it is religious in some ways, but it's absolutely fascinating. It's written by a Polish author. I've never read a book by a Polish author before. And I'm just loving it. So when I get time to just, read on my own without too many outside distractions, I really enjoy that. So I think apart from yoga asana, those would probably be my three things.
Amazing. Love. I mean, I've also, I've gotten into the swimming thing now, and it's been so life-changing. And I think one of the things I love the most about it is that there's just this freedom for the body. Like, absolutely. Without the gravity there's just this freedom for the body, and you can turn and you can twist and you can stretch and you can move and you can go that way and this way and up and down, and it's just like, it's so, I'm exploring like a whole new, like, me. It's I need to learn how to swim properly though, because I've realized that I'm getting like a sore neck from like the breaststroke situation that I'm trying to do. So
I'm not a good breaststroker. I find it's very slow.
I'm an only breaststroker. That's all I can do.
Well, I must tell you, I went to like a baby swimming school. My teacher was like all of 19 years old. She was phenomenal though. I loved her. She was very encouraging. And she taught me like proper freestyle, and I can do it like over like almost a kilometer now. So like that's amazing. I never thought I could do it. I'm not very fast. Let me just be clear. I'm not fast. But I'm not going to win a race at all. But that's fine. I'm not entering any races, so we're cool. It's a very freeing practice, as you say. And I've also found that the swimming pool, oddly enough, is a very inclusive space. I found people of all body shapes feel very comfortable to be themselves in there, more so actually than any other space that I've found, if I'm honest about it.
That's incredible. It's interesting that you say that, because just down the from the pool is that square where they do the dancing.
Yes,
I don't know if
exactly.
you've, and I think it was Cape Town Mag posted a video on their Instagram yesterday, of one of the dance like sunset nights, and the mix of humans in
Oh
that
yeah.
video, like as I was watching it, I was like, this is so fucking cool to see.
Oh yeah.
Like I just let it like just like fizzle out, like let it just keep like spreading. And but I think, funny enough, I mean, there's a lot going on in Sea Point, but I think there is a energy of Sea Point that has always been quite inclusive and quite, you know, you've got quite a mixed bunch of humans that have always
Oh
been
yeah.
drawn to Sea Point. It's very interesting.
Yeah, for sure. It is. It is. And you're right. Those dance sessions look phenomenal. That's the next step.
Wow, I believe in you. And then the final kind of question, I mean, I could chat to you forever. We'll do a part two. But the final question kind of that I've been asking everyone is, for, you know, the podcast name is As It Is. And I was saying this, that it was so interesting because the name came to me when I was at Pasithia's Garden, and it was after I'd done my first combo session, I'd done my first sweat lodge, and it was crazy download night that I had. And when I went to Vipassana now, one of the main talking points is seeing things as they are. See it as it is. Let it be as it is. Let it be as it is. Let it be as it is. And so what does that mean to you, to see things as it is?
Yeah, I found that a very interesting question. I thought, oh, this is her trick at the end to try and get people to, I don't know, reveal something about
Reveal
themselves.
yourself.
Reveal yourself. You know what? I wanted to say, I thought of a lot of things that I don't think it is, which is probably not very helpful. But I thought, like, a lot of us, these days, you hear a lot of people talking about perspectives of the truth, and people will talk about one person's truth and another person's truth, and somewhere in the middle of all of that muck is maybe the truth, which is sort of the truth but not really the truth. And I thought, actually, I think what it is, and I hope what you're trying to get at is that we're not being sort of blindly accepting of things that are told to us by anyone from any source, and that we are looking at something, listening to something, engaging with something, and taking that perspective and saying, all right, that's interesting. Let me go find the 6 or 7 other perspectives on it, and try and sift through that, and then gain an understanding of things. Because, look, we're living in a post-truth age where, and social media, I know we're on social media right now, but I don't really think it does the world of good for us being able to sift fiction from nonfiction. And that's fine, you know, like fiction has its place in the world. But I do think we need to be able to collate multiple perspectives and find a middle ground, and a sifting through, and almost like where we pick, you know, I'm thinking of like when I was little, we used to get the rice grains and then we had to sift them apart, and you had to toss the stones out and be left with the rice at the end. And it was a very arduous task, which I was very bad at. But that sort of thing where you're just coming up with your own little thing of rice. I don't actually know why rice is the analogy of this. It's a bad one. And being able to understand things from an informed perspective. It's difficult to get properly informed. It's not difficult to get informed. You can Google anything, a million answers will come up. That's not informed, that's Googling. So it's very difficult to get properly informed. But I think if people learn how they can do that, and I don't think you have to do a master's degree, I don't think you have to go to university. I think you just have to know how to find credible sources, and you need to ask the opposite question. So if somebody says to you, I'm telling you that the yoga practice is only about meditation, as an example. Your question should be, okay, that's funny. What else could it be about? And then you go look for the other things. That's seeing things as they are. And I don't know if we will ever really see things as we are, because, you know, we're all coming with our own background, traumas, opinions, perspectives, lived experience. So a lot of the time we do see things as we are. And that's interesting too, because it means as you change, as you learn, you can be like, I used to see it like this. Now I see it like that. I have changed. I'm seeing things a different way, which is also important. I don't know if that's really an answer, but that's the answer I'm going to give you.
I'm gonna tattoo that on my back for
It's going to be a long tattoo.
No, I love all of that, and what that really made me think of now is choice, and and like, you know, you say choose to question everything, choose to question everything, and knowing that you're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to change your mind. And so just because you've been taught one thing your whole life, just because you've been doing it since you were 21 and you're 41 now, that you can change your mind at any point. But also when you start changing your mind, and like you say, when you start changing, the world around you will start to change, and that's where it becomes hard, because other people don't like it when you change. Other people don't like it when you change your mind. It makes them uncomfortable. And I guess that's all the journey of all of us. But Firdose, thank you so much. I've taken up like almost an hour of your time, and I know you are like doing a million things. But just thank you so much, and not just for these 47 minutes, almost 50 minutes that we've been here, but all the hours and hours and hours and hours of work that you put into your masters, into your current studies, into the courses that you develop and the classes that you teach and the offerings that you offer, and how you put yourself out there. I really hope that you know that you're so seen and so loved and so appreciated and so respected. And I feel just really honored that I get to learn from you more and more. And I hope that you and I keep questioning each other and keep having debates and conversations about things and agreeing and disagreeing. And I really appreciate you. So thank you.
Oh, thanks, Kathleen. It's you've started an amazing thing. So I really hope that I hope you carry on getting people who are gonna give some really amazing information on this platform, and who are going to help you and me and everyone listening to question everything. Thank you for starting this and for having me on. It's been great.
Thanks, babes. I will definitely, it's going to be all about the questions, and this will grow. We'll definitely do a part 2 where we can get a little deeper into the thick of things. Now that you've been introduced into the community, this will be a ongoing thing. So good luck in die Parel, in die Hitte, and have fun with the cricket. I hope that it's good.
Thank you.
And
and
I'm sure I will see you soon.
Yeah, for sure. See you soon, Kathleen.
Thank you to everyone who has joined, who watched this live. Thank you to everyone who's listening to the podcast right now. Please subscribe to support me so I can keep having cool conversations. And let's change the world together, I guess. Have a beautiful day and evening, everyone. Much love. Bye.